Yeah,
What the
I'm
heck?
actually down. Yeah, I'm down on the Texas coast right now, and I will. I did a little fishing this morning, and I'll probably be at the pool this afternoon, with a cold beer in my hand. Yeah,
Nah.
I'll be fishing here this afternoon.
whereabouts are you?
I'm in Maryland. We hit the Potomac River.
Nice. Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
Aransas Bay right now in Rockport, Texas. So I walk out the front door, and I can wade out about probably 200 yards in about 17 inches of water and sight cast. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Oh, very
Yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
There's a part of the Potomac that we go to that's a lot like that. You just wade out into the middle.
nice.
What are you catching?
Uh, well, here it's speckled trout and red drum, or what we call redfish, right? Um, every once in a while it'll be black drum and maybe skipjack, but speckled trout more than anything else.
Hmm.
Or spotted sea trout is what they call it, Maryland going north. I think I
Yes.
think that, yeah, we call it speckled trout here in Texas.
Yeah.
April, you're in Arizona, right?
Yeah, I'm just frying alive over here. It's been like 119, 118. It's awful. It's hot. It's miserable.
At least there's
The
no
air
humidity with
sucks.
that.
Yeah, you say that, but like there's just a spot where hot is hot, and and
Yeah.
that's when you get north of 110. It's just unbelievably hot.
Fair
And then you
enough.
add to it, you've got, forest fires and stuff, then it just makes the air quality awful too. So then it's like hot and you can't breathe. So ugh.
Yeah.
Ready for a vacation next Saturday and I can't wait. I'm like every day I'm looking at their weather going, okay, Rhode Island looks fabulous. Boston looks fabulous.
I was going to say, you going somewhere cooler?
Yes. 100%.
That sounds like New England area.
Oh yes.
That's where
My
I am.
husband's my husband's from the New England area, so we're gonna go take the
Nice.
kiddos. My son just graduated college, so we're doing a little, you know, roo ha ha trip.
Nice. Oh,
Nice.
by the way,
Congrats.
5 seconds here. All right. Well, I didn't get a chance to
Almost
say
forgot how to do this.
congratulations. Congratulations on getting a kid through college, April. That's quite the feat.
With no debt too.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's uncalled for.
Yeah, that's strong. Well, welcome to Refresh Friday, everybody. And I guess welcome back to Jeff and me. We took our summer vacations and are ready to get back in the thick of things. I know Jeff came back from his vacation without a CRM or a DMS. So we'll be talking about that today.
Yeah. That was fun.
And we have with us April, who also had some fun with our topic today.
Oh yeah, we definitely had a lot of fun. Thankfully, and part of what I'm sure we're going to talk about, not having all your eggs in one basket, the fact that we did not have our CRM tied up into this situation was, quite frankly, a lifesaver. So,
I'm curious, who do you use?
Vin Solutions.
Okay.
And again, it's more of a not having all eggs in one basket from the service side as well. The fact that we had X time and we had Vin Solutions allowed us to do our workarounds were a little bit more manageable than folks like yourself who had eLead and CDK, who therefore it just made it that much more difficult. So
Yes.
In
I'm sure we're
April,
going to get right into the fun of that.
Yeah.
well, Well, after we find out a little more about who you are and who Tim is. So, April, how long have you been in the car business, and has it always been
This
with Horne?
this is my 27th year in the car business. I have been with the Horn since 2017. I've done a little bit of everything in the car business. I've spent 8 years in finance, 7 years on the retail desk, then went in to become an internet director, been a GSM, a GM, and now work in the corporate area where I'm able to help all of our stores.
Nice.
Very nice.
Grew up in Nebraska. Now I'm just out here frying in Arizona. But I've been in Arizona since '99, so I've been here a long time. I'm allowed to now complain about the heat. Like when you first move here, you're not allowed to complain about the heat, but then there's a certain aspect when you've been here long enough, you're officially allowed to complain about the heat. I'm there.
Yep, I would say you are. And Tim, you're on the data security side of the world. Tell us a little bit about
Well,
yourself.
sure. Well, definitely, you can't talk about data without talking about security. I mean, I think that's, let's be clear. I'm much more in the data world, and it's always been implicit that we have security measures in place, both from keeping the things that we can't control outside our walls, and better helping folks understand what it is that they can do to make sure there are no doors left open. We'll talk a little bit more about that today, but my history in the automotive world has been working with OEMs on everything from building mobile apps to dealers like Chuck Nash Chevrolet down in San Marcos, Texas, run social media campaigns. Later on in life, helping Brian Benstock build a concierge and car delivery service. Dick Hanna out on the West Coast is probably one I can talk a little bit about. The current situation, because it's not over yet. In terms of how technology like a customer data platform and a CRM that is separate from the DMS can actually bring you not all, but a whole lot of what you need for business continuity. So people ask me what I do. It's about digital transformation to a certain degree, but that means something different to everybody. It's always just about data at the end of the day. It's your data is actually the thing in your business that's probably, when you really weigh it, more valuable than the real estate you sit on. So here we are, and I know we're going to have a fun conversation today about what's going on with other disruptions when it comes to data.
Well, you said something real quick. You said this isn't the end of it. Elaborate on that.
Well, let's be honest. Most organizations, this is not limited to the car business, right? Most companies disparately manage their data. They have, over the last 15 years, they've invested in more tools. For the average company, it's because let's go chase the customer, whether that's Facebook or it's Twitter, it's TikTok, Instagram, it's whatever that's happening. It's e-commerce, right? It's something that is gradually over the last 15 years has caused us to naturally, I want to be fair about that, naturally invest in new technologies. The byproduct of that is that a lot of organizations, and in the car world and in the retail automotive world, most car dealers have got at least 15 and sometimes as many as 25 different software as a service systems, including the DMS, within each of their rooftops. Data is out there at the nether reaches with 3 or 4 people having usernames and passwords to access it. And to what I already said, right? It leaves doors open. So when you think about geopolitics for a second, and this concept of social engineering, which, to really just bring that down for everybody to understand, is those emails that you get sometime that say, click here to get your $100 gift card at Best Buy, or click here to get a free cup of coffee at Starbucks. Or what happened over the last 2 weeks, right? here we were in the perils of the CDK outage, the breach, and people were getting emails that looked like they were coming from CDK, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So the bad actors. When I say this is not an isolated incident, or this is really just the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg because of the profile of it, right? Um, there have been dealers in the past who've had data stolen and held for ransom. It happens to banks. Happened as we were talking before the show started. It happened to AT&T a year ago. Um, that type of behavior is only going to accelerate because a lot of companies, as I said before, have mismanaged naturally. They've just mismanaged their data and they've left vulnerabilities abound for bad things to happen. And it's not just a blue suit, a Russian originated attack that you have to worry about. It's that, Bob on your sales floor had a bad day and he decides to tap into the DMS or your CRM and take all of the contacts with him and go across the street to your competitor. So it's too easy for people to do any of these things right now. And therefore, the frequency that we'll see these things happen, I think we're just going to see more of it. Right? It's going to get much worse before it gets better. Is the overarching message I think that people need to understand. They need to embrace it in order to address it.
I almost got caught in an email yesterday where
Yeah, you did.
one of the technologies that we use for some of our systems sent an email that said that our payment had been declined, and it looked exact. It was their logo, as everything. And I'm pretty good at sniffing these things out. And I was about to hit fix it in your account button, and then I realized the email address at the top was not from them, and it made me think, man, if I was getting tricked that easily, it'd be really nice if our email programs had some sort of sniffer thing that just said, hey, the domain of this email address is not the name of what's being sent to you. And just had some little warning thing. God, it could stop so much junk.
Which we have solutions like that here at Horne Auto Group, and I will tell you, there's still stuff that gets through. Like we block a lot, and a lot gets sniffered out automatically, but there's still some stuff that'll come through because to Tim's point, they're getting more sophisticated. So not now when the email comes through, if they go create a Gmail that looks like a legit Gmail, so it doesn't even trigger the situation, and they're not using those old school tools where they're blasting it out from an offshore email, then it gets those things through. I actually got hit with one a couple of weeks ago. It was a DocuSign, and I was expecting one. Like I was waiting for a DocuSign to come over for something. So I see the DocuSign and I automatically click on it and immediately did the double take on who sent it, realized it right away and forwarded it off to my IT. But to that point, how often do our normal employee not realize it, and they go all the way through things like that? They get all the way to the finish line on things like that. It actually happened. It happened here at our group at one point. We had an employee who supposedly emailed the HR, the payroll lady, and said, "Hey, can you please change where my paycheck goes to? Here's my new paycheck."
I get at
my
least 3 of those a day.
and that sort of thing. And she fell for it and sent this, this kid's paycheck to somebody,
Wow.
and because it looked legit, it was like, well, it was from him. And I was like, no, it wasn't here. And well, how would they even got my email address? And you start to go down, how are these questions? And then you realize, well, she had been hacked, right? So because she had been hacked, they had all the things that they needed to be able to put a sophisticated phishing out there. And then you add to it AI now, which is just making everything look more real and more legit with more ease. people are believing everything they see, and it's just going to make this, to Tim's point, this is the tip of the iceberg and is going to perpetuate a lot of these things as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think
My favorite one is.
Well, I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
say real quick. I meant to say it earlier. Is the jam here about this not being an isolated incident is because CDK has gone on as long as it has, and it has been so high profile and so widespread in terms of its impact. There are people that are licking their chops right now at retail automotive as a vertical where they know there are vulnerabilities and opportunities to do this again and again and again. So that's the hard part that nobody wants to talk about, right? I don't think anybody wants to really embrace the fact that, not only does this expose us, but it exposes us and is like it's going to be moths to a flame in terms of what it's going to attract with other people trying to do the same, which is what April's talking about there, the sophistication at which they can show up differently. We will find out to the point was made earlier in terms of, do we know what was, where it happened? Do we know exactly where it happened? Do we know how it happened when it comes to CDK? Even when that is totally transparent, when that is totally made available, the next attacks will come at us from a very different direction in a very different form, is what I'm saying.
Well, I know all of us have been impacted by the CDK outage. Jeff, you came back from vacation, and that was a fun one for you. You want to start us off? Maybe we go around and share some of the experiences that we each had since this happened.
No, it's just a pain in the ass.
How are y'all desking deals?
That's a great question. Some old school methods, pretty much. Yeah. So, we rely on CDK for quite a bit. DMS, CRM, server scheduling, some F&I products, you name it. And, for us, being a smaller dealership wasn't so bad. I mean, it still sucked, but it wasn't quite as many fires. And luckily for us, we've still got a pretty veteran force that's been around prior to all the digital stuff. So, it just went back to the old pen and paper for quite a while. But, the biggest part was just, for quite a while, I wasn't able to get leads. That was some internal issues as well. And then inventory got messed up. I guess there was some type of feed associated with cars.com, and we didn't figure that out for about 5 or 6 days. Things weren't being updated. It's just a pain in the ass.
April, you said that you all are using Cox for some of your softwares and CDK for others. So you didn't go through the stuff that Jeff did.
It was a massive pain. The things that you don't realize until somebody's like, wait, this is broke, that's broke. How do we pivot around it? And so we pivoted pretty quickly. Things like our parts, for instance, we used our online parts store to see what parts we had available, so that because you couldn't just go into CDK and see what you had. So we have some pretty big parts departments. So that was kind of one of our big issues right out the gate. That worked really well. And then what we did is we just we kept track of the parts manually and then just replaced that part instantaneously, so that, our parts store kind of just stayed as accurate as it could be. That worked out pretty well. For service, we do have X time, so we were able to still have our scheduling and stuff up and running separated, manual process for all of that. So that was a lot of fun. Honestly, finance was probably the hardest part. Finance for us, because we do, the scanning and the e-contracting and all the things. I didn't even have a legal Arizona law contract that I could handwrite if we wanted to. So,
Right.
figuring out ways to get a PDF fillable as quickly as possible, getting stores onto dealer track e-contracting if they weren't already, like turning that on ASAP, reaching out to a friend who does tap to sign so that we could do the cuddle contracts that we had no way to e-contract those at that point. Just doing all the things that we possibly could do to continue business as usual as much as possible. We had, some CSI suffering, because customers don't understand. They already hate how long it takes, and now we're handwriting things. So obviously everything was taking longer. So there was a lot of frustrations from consumers on that. A lot of people understood, but a lot of people were frustrated. And then, coming off to the other side, I think, well, one of the big issues I had, honestly, was with Cox, who, some of the other vendors who said, well, CDK is not working. We turned off that feed, and now we're going to adjust and go somewhere else for the feed, and actually cause more things to break than were actually needed to be breaking. So there was some unintended consequences from vendors that I shouldn't have had consequences from, because if they would have just left it alone, it was fine, because I had taken my team and put my office staff and my finance staff into my, into HomeNet and into my CRM, and started putting forms in there. So as many forms as could just print automatically out of the CRM, we did that. We manually were putting our inventory into HomeNet, because HomeNet's my syndicator that feeds everywhere. But then when HomeNet said, "Oh, well, we don't get CDK anymore. We'll go look for it at Viato," and I'm like, "But Viato doesn't have invoice and stuff." So it became added, hours and hours and hours of work on my plate to fix things that I shouldn't have had to fix. And then you get to the fun part, which is, okay, CDK is back on, and now we've got to scramble to try to get all this stuff back into the system and clean it all up. I literally cleared my whole plate last week to help my finance department just at my Kia store alone. They had 180 deals that had to get put back into CDK, and figure out how are we going to get them, make sure everything's funded, and, cross the T's and dot the I's at this point, because it was, those first few days especially, it was just kind of like, I don't know what they signed. They signed some stuff and we sent them down the road. So, that was really interesting. My smaller stores, they fared pretty well, because, they had the manpower to all kind of help each other and get through it relatively quickly. But I will say at the end of this, it was one of those things I said, no matter how much CDK tries to tell me that we should be all in with them, I will never agree to all eggs in one basket. Never, ever will I agree to all eggs in one basket, because that was our only saving grace. I'm not sure if the Kia store had been all eggs in one basket at the volume that they do, that it wouldn't have caused complete catastrophe. So I feel bad for the stores out there that have high volume stores that were just basically shut down.
Were there any dealerships that completely shut down for a while?
Yeah.
I thought I read in the news where there was a Chevy dealership completely shut the doors for 3 or 4 days.
Not in my group, but there were quite a few stores in different states who did have to shut down, and here's why. You have, if they were on the on all-in CDK, and they're not a state that allowed spot delivering, they really got themselves into a pickle, because they couldn't do the full contract and everything. If they couldn't finalize the transaction completely, they couldn't deliver a car. So there were some stores that genuinely were like, until they could figure out true contingency, they were kind of, hosed. They were just, there was nothing they could really do. And I think that's something we've all learned out of this as well, is to make sure that we have our, emergency backpack ready to go when anything happens. So we shouldn't be figuring out contingencies on the fly. We should have already had contingencies in place, knowing that if this happens, here's what we do. And I think that's something else we all learned a valuable lesson on. Of course, we're automotive, so that lesson's probably not going to stick very long.
Yeah. We're
You can tell you've been in the business for a while.
Exactly. Yep. So So, and then I, to the other side to it, in what I call an unintended advantage of the situation is I think it has brought to light the vulnerabilities that we all kind of started this conversation with. And I think that that's the advantage of it because, I think as all these new laws have come out, the dealerships have looked at it as I got to check mark this box, not as there's an actual purpose to why we should be doing these things, why we should be, looking at
Right.
cybersecurity, why should we, and I think that there's a little bit of a mind shift potentially happening as it hits so close to home that the risks are real. And these things we really should be paying attention to, and it's not just, oh, somebody's being a pain, they're making me do this thing and now I have to do it, and actually doing it for a reason and a purpose.
Yeah.
An FTC rule for this one now.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and we've spent a little time talking about bad actors. Seeing this as an exposed opportunity that there's got to be other ways that they can take advantage of the vertical or businesses that are other car dealers, other businesses that look like car dealers, right? I mean, there's that. But this is where the FTC is going to they're going to come out and they're going to make some examples of folks. And it's not just the FTC. You have 14 different states that have data privacy laws that all went into effect this summer. And on top of those data privacy laws, many of them have things about consumer protection and data security in the laws as well. So I think we'll see this is to the point April just made, about the acute awareness that people have right now. Not everyone is going to be literate about data tomorrow. However, I think many more dealer principals, and when you get into management of a dealer, I think more and more folks are starting to think twice and read an extra paragraph on, a lot of these automotive news stories on digital transformation and data management and data security. I think they're going to invest a little time. My quick CDK stories are one with a couple of our clients that are using enterprise customer data platforms. One who has 28 rooftops and has one CDP, that is controlling the data for all 28 of the rooftops. Doing it mainly on the variable side, but a little bit on the F&I and the fixed ops side of things as well. They were able to, and then they're using HubSpot for marketing automation, a non-automotive tool, but something that a lot of people are familiar with, right? They had two systems that were able to continuously operate, and from that, they were able to query information that had been pulled in the 24, 48 hours prior to CDK turning things off, right? And they were able to maintain some continuity. And this goes back to April's all your eggs in one basket, statement is this is where you have to look at technologies like customer data platforms, master data management systems. A lot of the utility that Amazon and some of these other big tech vendors are coming to auto dealers with today is yes, there to help you from an operational standpoint. It is there to help you personalize customer experiences and to reduce your expenses and to do a whole lot of things with artificial intelligence, which we won't go in this call. But the same thing it's doing there, it's giving you a copy of your data, and with that, you've got a fantastic opportunity to continue to operate. So I had a couple of clients that were able to do that. I also have a very personal story. My wife works for Ford, and we decided to use the AZ purchase plan with Ford to go buy a truck from the Ford dealer in our neighborhood while this was going on. And I know, because I'm in the business, I told her when we were going in, I said, you know what they're going to do? They're either going to tell us they can't sell us a car, or they're going to tell us that it's going to take too long or something, and they're going to blame it all on the DMS. To my surprise, we went through the test drive, we did everything, and then they told us, listen, it's going to take a little bit longer to find a bank rate because we have to call the banks directly. We have to work with the web, or we have to work with them through the web. We have to go see what we can do to get the best rate for you. And then when we went into F&I, the same kind of situation is multiple dashboards being used at once for us to see things. To the point April was making, the thing they didn't do was stop at delivering the car. Instead, they had a nice little legal document that we had to sign that said basically we would borrow the vehicle and assume all liability, and sign here and we'll give you the key, right? And so I think I tell that story because anecdotally, it's that one dealership, Leaf Johnson. I'll just say who it was. Leaf Johnson Ford in Austin, Texas, is where we bought that truck. And effectively, what we experienced that day was humans being humans, finding a way to operate and being resilient, right? And also being extremely transparent with us, the customer, at that point too. Yeah. And that to me was refreshing. That was very unstereotypical car dealer like, right? I mean, and I say that to be fair. I'm not saying the stereotype fits all dealers. It's just that in that situation, because of the CDK outage, it felt like a much more human experience. Not because they were doing things manually, but just because they were being more transparent about everything. So, I'm just echoing. I just want to echo what April said. This is probably the second time I've said it, but the acuteness, and the acute awareness that I think people in the car business will have from this point going forward. I think they're going to take it serious now when they talk about systems integration. They're going to, and it's no coincidence that NADA and Authenticom have announced this whole NADA Vault thing this week, right? To take control of your data. Now, let's be fair. It doesn't give you 100% control of all of your data that's in your DMS, but it's a huge step in that direction. So I look at April because she and I've known each other for a few years now, and I've know about the journey she's been on and in the work we do. I've tried to sell her a dozen times, and she's always like, "I got it, Tim. I know what we're doing here." But this is
say that, and I will tell you, like, it was a saving grace. We basically, what Authenticom is now coming out, this NADA Vault, like, I already did it, and I had it live literally 2 weeks prior to this happening. So now all of my vendors who I had just signed up, my 4th of July mailers and my things, we're getting ready to go into our biggest selling holiday week of the year. And they're like, "We're so sorry. We're not sure what we're going to do with CDK shutdown." I said, "I ain't got no problem. Send it on over. We'll just hook you up to Authenticom." I said, "I got everything up to Tuesday when they shut down. So right. I got no problems whatsoever." So we were able to move forward with all of my marketing. Everything went off without a hitch. So having that separate, everything that Tim's talking about is a huge win for us, and something I've been working on for years now. I can take us on a whole another hour conversation on my big dreams and plans on what I'm trying to really accomplish. But it's a super important aspect, is finding a way to control your data, but doing it in a way that is secure. I mean, I can't tell you how many people still, when they're asking me to download lists and email that to them. There's the amount of vendors out there that are still saying, "Hey, can you pull me a list of these people and shoot it over to me in an email?" And I'm like, okay, we've got to stop that. Like, you want to talk about, we talk about, hey, worry about these bad characters who are trying to take your data. We got to also worry about the vendors out there who need to be educating themselves as well on how these things should be now, and realizing that they need to pivot and they need to not put their vendors or their dealers at risk by asking for things like that. We should not be sharing data in a CSV file via email to
Ever.
anyone
Well,
more. You
that's
know,
a
that
I
should
would think
violation of
that would
grammar,
be
violation
immediate
of cards,
cancellation.
and
you would think so, right? But how many GMs out there are doing it? You know, the guy just asked some questions about a BCA. Well, most dealers did do BCAs in this situation because the alternative was, here, just take the keys and I have no contractual anything really, because I handwrote a contract that I don't know if will even uphold to the bank. So it was kind of a not a normal practice, but kind of a, it gives me a little bit more security and safety during this time when I don't have a fully funding contract, perhaps. So that's why BCAs were being done. But now you go to question, when we do a BCA and I need a driver's license and insurance, how are we getting a copy of that? Too many
Right.
times I'm still seeing salespeople or customers taking pictures of this stuff and texting it, right? And there's no real way to stop it other than to say don't do it. So the education has to be for real. And Tim, you brought something else up that actually is probably the thing I'm most scared about, because dealers are not as educated. The people who are going to take this as an opportunity to make money on the dealers and come out with solutions that they're going to say, here I am, I'm here to help you, I'm here to save you from all of these problems. And quite frankly, they're basically putting, a band-aid on a full-fledged, gusher. So that's not going to be helpful, and I'm scared that is going to happen. We already have some in the industry. We already have a good amount of people who say, hey, I'll protect you and we're compliant, and they claim FTC this and that, and quite frankly, they don't really do more than what you currently are doing, other than give you a pretty piece of paper to say you did it, right? Here's your certificate of completion. That didn't do anything. I think that's something, if I was to say anything today to dealers, take your time on this, educate yourself. Don't just look for the cheapest, quickest solution to check mark a box, because that isn't going to actually be helping you. So
That's
if
right.
that was big advice from this, like, don't just sign up for the first guy who walks through your door saying, I can make sure this doesn't happen to you, and we're going to charge you $200 a month, because that guy probably ain't doing nothing.
well, I think
Good point.
fallout is definitely something we want to cover here, and I think this is a good time to transition, especially since we have a comment or a question from the audience in that regard. And the fallout for CDK, has obviously started. I hear they paid the ransom, but has it really, ended?
Well, does anyone know have they released what actual information was gathered?
Well,
No.
can they? Is there some sort of government process or something that
Well, so the
causes them to
interesting
wait?
thing, and it depends on who you talk to. So it depends, because CDK is a vendor, not a dealer. Dealers and banks were held to the FTC guidelines, meaning, like, if we had a breach, we have to go out and put it out there for everyone to see who, what, where, when, and why. But CDK, I'm not sure if they fall. I'm not sure how legally where they fall on what information they actually have to give us and what information they don't have to give us, and then what
Right.
information do they have to give to the end consumer or not give to the end consumer. So there's more questions in that question than there are answers, in my opinion.
That's right. I mean, that's it depends on geographically where the breach happened too, because this is where states' attorney generals will get involved in the name of consumer protection, right? That anyone whose information was stolen in this situation, they have to be notified. And most of these state laws say that you have 30 or 45 days to notify someone that their information was compromised in a breach like this, right? So You know, that's the jam, and to talk about it on the fallout side of this, think about all the lawsuits already that have been filed against CDK, right? And there will be more. I mean, 15,000 ish businesses that were partially frozen up because of what you're calling an outage, which we know it's not, because it was well documented by your own lips that something from the outside came in and got into the system and got the information. Um, I don't know if this is recoverable for CDK. I don't know. I mean, there's the physical truth that most dealers that are using CDK needed to return to continuity, needed to return to operations. But I don't see. Pardon me. I probably see many dealers opting to not renew with CDK when that renewal opportunity comes on, or terminating the relationship with CDK and moving to a different DMS and or other investments in terms of what they do, which is the slippery slope that I think April was just talking about too. There's a lot of good people. I'd like to think I'm one of them that are out there with plausible solutions that actually work and can be tied to business outcomes and use cases, pass your security measures and any muster you want to put in front of it, right? And there's a lot of people out there that are just coming in and being capitalistically opportunistic and saying, "Hey, we've got something that can help you make sure this never happens again," which is bullshit, right? So, um, you know, there's fallout in this for CDK specifically. Um, I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from this. They're going to have to make some major changes in order to build confidence there, and they're going to have to make some huge investments to be able to restore just confidence in their brand, not just the technology, but the brand itself.
And it's sad because
I don't know that I agree with that as much as a CDK client. I don't know that I totally agree with that, because I think, again, it goes back to how quickly we forget things. But as we all said, this is the tip of the iceberg. It's a matter of time before the next guy gets hit. And most of us are in, if we're with CDK, we're in a lengthy contract, and a contract that basically is going to keep us from being able to probably sue them, I'm sure. And, there's probably some kind of clause because they're calling it an outage that we can't even get insurance to cover it, right? Like, at the end of the day, I feel like the dealers are is another example of how we try to do everything right, and we're the ones holding the shitstorm at the end of it. But
right.
But ultimately, I think that if CDK does the right things now, they have a capability of coming back stronger, because they will actually be looking at these things now that maybe other people are not looking at, because they still think, oh, it just happened to them, it's not going to happen to me. So I almost think that after it happens to somebody, they have a better opportunity of coming back from it. Now, what I will say, against CDK, the one thing of this whole debacle that I think I, as a CDK client, was most disturbed about was their lack of trying to help their dealers. There was no empathy that came out really from CDK at all. I mean, we got an occasional email of, "We're still out, we're so sorry," but there was no sheer empathy. I had more empathy from my vendors that were not with CDK saying, "Hey, can I come to the store? Can I help you with this? Can I help you write out ROs? What can we do? How can we help?" Genuinely from everyone else. Yet, what are the thousands and thousands of CDK employees doing while they're shut down? I mean, they're shut down, so they're not doing their normal job. Why were we not sending them out to the stores and saying, "Hey, go be our brand, go help the dealers, go make sure they understand we care"? And I think to me, that was the real failure in CDK's part. And maybe it was self preservation. Maybe they did it because they were worried that people would, open their mouths and say things they shouldn't say. But from a client perspective, that was the part that I found the most disheartening about the way that they handled the situation. I mean,
For
Jeff,
sure.
what did you see on your, like, what was your feelings on your side from how CDK handled it? Things, this is going to happen. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen to somebody else, but how they handle it is
Right.
what's important. So
Correct.
what was your feelings on how they handled it?
That question was for me, wasn't it?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear it. No, I whenever you were explaining it, I totally agree. Yeah, it. We've got an IT company that's sort of in between, and I'll have to give them credit. Every hour on the hour, they were sending group wide emails explaining. And of course, every hour in the hour was probably overkill, but they were explaining. I get maybe they had a connection with someone at CDK, but every email would break down what was working, what wasn't working, uh, what they were doing to try and help facilitate it. Um, but that wasn't from CDK. That was
Yeah.
from our IT company.
Right.
So yeah, I agree. I didn't.
Yeah.
I personally didn't hear from anyone specifically.
Yeah, and this is something though that to the point you're making, April, is does if you're the vendor, you have to have a disaster recovery plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
Just like every major corporation in the corporate communication suite has a crisis contingency plan. Um, uh, Oil companies, have got websites already built for every region of the world in case one of their tankers has an oil spill. They can spin it up overnight and they can say, hey, we're ready for this, right? And this is different. Absolutely, this is different. But it's not fundamentally when it comes to preparedness and how you conduct yourself as a business when a bad day happens. And
Right.
that's my point when I say I don't know how CDK is going to recover. I was quick to say they have to make some major changes, right? Because all I heard from dealers is what April's already said, is that it just didn't feel right at all the way CDK was handling the situation, right? Um, Not giving definitive steps or coming and helping folks. It was a week later that they came up with a website that says, hey, here are some things that we want to give our customers guidance on what they can do, right? But that was a week later. And so this is what all businesses have to do, and it's actually what I was talking about Leif Johnson, right? Is that my experience was that the resiliency was that I still was dealing. I was going to buy a vehicle, and the person I was buying it from only for a sharp second had an excuse about something not working the way it was. I had empathy with it because I'm in the vein to know, and we just didn't see that from CDK in this situation, right? We just really didn't see that they had a, a disaster plan, a contingency plan, or a recovery plan that was in place. Or if they do, they did a very poor job in communicating it, and that rightly so is going to have a lot of people judging.
Mm-hmm.
I think the big thing that they could do for the industry now is be transparent about what happened, how they got breached, and what they're doing to move forward with it so that others can learn. Because I don't know that we've said it outright in this show, but I know we intended it because we talked about it beforehand, before we went live. But we all recognize that there's evil out there and it's going to touch us at some point. And it sucks, and that's what these people are that went after CDK. They're just pure evil.
Mm-hmm.
until we can find a better way to combat evil, we have to work together to discover this. And that's all I ask. I just hope that CDK will be transparent with the rest of us, and so that we can all learn and work together to combat this evil.
Think they'll do it?
I think that out of this is going to come, unfortunately, it's going to be like one of those fortunate, unfortunate things. But I think that the FTC and the government are going to start forcing more of that hand. I think we're staring down the barrel of more regulation coming, not less regulation coming in this space. And I think it will start to force some of the vendors to have to start working together in ways that they've refused previously. Because it's going to be mandated.
Yeah, well, I would say that to April's point on taking your time to be very thoughtful and diligent and vigilant about what you will do as a dealer and as vendors supporting your customers. This is an iterative journey that we're all on together, in terms of how we digitize our business, how we sell cars, and how we serve customers. And it's not always in that order, right? It's all of these things are not turnkey projects, right? But they are iterative. It's an iterative process and a continuous optimization of everything we do. And I think I think the thing that we have to understand is that we haven't talked a whole lot about it, but when we think about what Apple and Google are doing right now with artificial intelligence, and OpenAI, what they're doing with artificial intelligence, there are going to be things that we have to be just as pragmatic and just as diligent in determining how we want to use new technologies, because of the threats and not just the opportunities, right? Because that's how most of us make decisions, is we say, am I going to sell 3 more cars per month if I invest in this tool? Where now I think people will start to understand what are the vulnerabilities, or what do I need to be concerned about when it comes to this. Some of that will be as simple as, very clean and concise security, SOC 2 testing, multi-factor authentication. You guys were just mentioning FTC, but if most dealers just looked at half of the FTC safeguard checklist, if they just looked at half of it for over a year, let's get half of this done. Breaches like this would be a little less frequent. Just half of it would, So that's at the end of the day. Is I just think what we have to do is we have to be careful about what we invest in. We got to be very careful about who we give access to our systems, and we need to be very smart, understanding that a lot of regulation that's coming our way is not here to penalize us. It's here to make us sure that things like this don't happen.
The funny part in working down that list, as you're suggesting, whether it's getting better at understanding the Gramm-Leach-Wiley Act or safeguards or whatever it is, if you are working towards that, even slowly, if something were to happen to you, you can at least go back to these agencies that might be coming after you and saying, hey, look, we've been working on this. This is what we've done so far. And at least can show that you've been making an effort, so they don't come down as hard on you then.
Bingo.
Correct.
Yeah. It definitely got some comments.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's 100% right. We've heard that, and there's because they're genuinely basically being asked to do it, right? So that is true, and it goes again to that tip of the iceberg statement. It's not going to stop. If they're making this much money off of it, why would they stop? They've hit CDK, they've hit insurance companies, they've hit the casinos, they've hit, they're going thing after thing after thing after thing, and they're going to take the highest rewarding items first, that impact and affect all of us. But that doesn't mean that they're not willing to take, you know, the smaller pieces too, right? So I think that that's something we just got to be aware and cognizant of, and do the best that we can. And don't be overwhelmed by it. You guys bring up a good point. I think when FTC first came out, I found myself sitting here overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, there's all these things we have to do. And rather than just saying, hey, okay, let's take one thing at a time, one little piece at a time, learn about it, educate yourself about it, and then put a plan and process in your own dealerships together to solve it and move forward and do a little at a time, then it's not so overwhelming.
Good point.
Yep. It's funny, going back a little, you mentioned the NADA Athenacom. Well, I hope they're watching today, because we are trying to get them on a future show to talk about that further. So
Good. Yeah, we're actually.
I love it. I'm glad they're finally doing something together to promote that. Athenacom has notoriously only been a solution for vendors, and they haven't really gone to the dealer space and had these conversations. But they're more than willing if you ask them. So I'm glad that they're starting to say, hey, we have a really great solution for everyone to use as a data lock for this space. So very excited.
Yeah, and I can tell you there's a couple of conversations we've had with both NADA and NIADA, right? And these have been conversations that have been going on for a year about ways that we can work with insurance brokers and carriers to help dealers get fair cyber insurance, which is table stakes, right? Is just bad things happen. If it's not the Russians, it's a pissed off employee who sabotages everything, or just takes or it's a natural disaster, right? It's just something. Something may put you in a place where you'll need insurance that doesn't protect you from the evil people, but from bad things, just bad situations. The second part of that is just some conversations we've had with each of them about really shoring up education, at the trade organization level, to say, let's talk about what master data management looks like. Let's talk about what responsible data access is. Let's translate FTC safeguard law. Here's one that's been thrown around a lot. Let's retranslate the FTC safeguard law as a prescription for having better, more confident operations, and not as something that we need to do to just kowtow to the government. So I think I think all of those conversations will accelerate to the point that's been made by a couple folks today. The auto industry is like every other industry. Is people are they have very short memories in terms of things that happen. But I think this is a moment that will be capitalized on for folks to take steps forward. Of what I said earlier about the iterative journey, I think we're going to see a lot of people who were otherwise inert, and how they were operating, saying, I'll wait for it until I need to wait for it, right? It won't happen to me. Now they're in a situation where they know they have to do something.
Yep. No doubt.
Well, I'm hoping that CDK and this outage is, or let me rephrase that, not CDK, but the CDK outage is behind us. Not hoping CDK is behind us. But I want to thank both of you for your experiences, your opinions, and your forward looking on what we're going to be dealing with here, helping to bring some awareness as we all work together to combat this evil.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard the end of this.
No.
No.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be, it is going to be interesting to see what happens with regards to, when insurance companies don't cover because of the verbiage, and then, what dealers are going to actually go. And then at the end of the day, you're already seeing class action lawsuits from customers who, are already going out there. So the shakeout of all of this is definitely TBD.
No doubt.
Yeah. Well, it is going to reverberate, right? It is. This is something that people are going to talk about for a long time. This probably challenges the short memories, but we will see how resolution is brought to the situation, and I think we're going to discover a lot of things that help us ensure that things like this don't happen as frequent. It's not, again, let's just be clear, there's nothing that's going to stop things like this from happening. It's just a way that some people can protect themselves, and not everybody's going to do that. So here we go.
Sounds like fun.
Well, appreciate you both for having us on. This is a great conversation, and look forward to spending more time with you guys in the future.
Likewise.
You bet.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you both, and everyone have a great weekend.
Definitely. We'll talk fishing Friday. And cold beer next time. Let's do it. Yeah.
Make it happen. Take care.
Bye,
All
everyone.
right, y'all.